We're going to take a little bit of time and go to the book of Judges. And there were certainly some important folks in between the last Old Testament scholar, hero, and this one. But I picked Gideon because he really wasn't qualified, and he wasn't really impressed himself. He wasn't ready for this job, and yet he went for it. He went for it, and God worked hard to convince him that he was good enough and that he was able. And so I thought, well, that's pretty appropriate. We all need to hear that a little bit. Am I good enough for the job that God calls me to? I'm not sure I'm always confident that I am. So, we're in Judges chapter 6, and we're going to begin in verse 1. Judges 6:1. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years, he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. And whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped on the land, they ruined the crops all the way to Gaza, and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep, nor cattle, nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock in their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them on their camels, or their camels. They could count them on their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian was so impoverished, the Israelites, that they cried out to the Lord for help. When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live. But you have not listened to me." The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Pardon me, Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders and our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hands of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have, and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, Lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you return." Gideon went inside, prepared a young goat, and from an ephah of flour he made bread without yeast. Putting the meat in a basket and its broth in a pot, he brought them out and offered them to him under the oak. The angel of the Lord said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth." And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread. The angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die." So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there, and called it, "The Lord is Peace." To this day, it stands in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. Now, I'm going to stop there. This is a long, I'm going to read like into 7 even. But I want to stop and just look at the beginning of Gideon's work here. Gideon starts off, he's a farmer, obviously. He's bringing wheat and he's threshing it, and he's threshing it inside the wine press. Now, the wine press probably wasn't what we think of when we think of a wine press, you know, the tub of wood and, you know, all the girls with their purple feet dancing on on the grapes, and it's coming out the bottom. Probably not quite like that, but it's not far off. It might have been more likely a stone kind of thing where they were still below level. They had to fill it up with grapes and then squeeze out the grapes, however they did that, whether it was their feet or not. So he's kind of hiding. He's in a bucket of either stone or wood, and he's threshing wheat. And wheat, as you know, when you're threshing it, maybe you don't know, but you go to a windy spot, you throw the wheat in the air after you crushed it down, and the chaff would blow away and the good stuff would land. So you wanted a little windy hill. That was a great place for threshing wheat. Now he's down probably in the valley where the grapevines are in a little bucket trying to thresh his wheat. I'm sure it was a tough job. He was not doing well at it, but he was afraid. As we read through that, the Midianites had just oppressed the people of Israel so badly that they were scared for everything. I mean, they wouldn't leave them anything alive if the Midianites had their way. So here we see this brave warrior, as the angel of the Lord calls him. He's in the barrel, he's working on wheat, and he's probably looking around hoping nobody notices. And the angel of the Lord shows up and goes, "God has seen you, you brave warrior, you." And he goes, "Who are you talking to?" Yeah, I'm sure he's looking around. "Are you kidding me? Brave warrior, I'm here hiding in a bucket. I'm trying to get my wheat threshed so that I can make some bread. I'm not the warrior." And as he goes along, his first word, verse 13, is the first time I hear this. It's great. Verse 13, he says, "Pardon me, my Lord." In the NIV, they write it, "Pardon me, my Lord. I think you've got this wrong. But if the Lord is with us," he goes on to talk about this. Well, God, you think that you're here and you're going to make me the mighty warrior? And I look around and things are a mess. I mean, it was like a trigger for Gideon. He started just rolling out the disaster that they were all in the middle of. Do you see us? Do you see the Midianites? They're taking everything we got. They stomp down our stuff. They run away. There's hordes of them. There's so many camels. I can't even count them. They're all over us. And it was obvious that Gideon had something going on inside of him because he just let it roll. God, where are you? Where are the miracles that we thought we heard about, that we saw from our family telling us the story, but we didn't see them? Where are they now? Why have you left our land this way? Maybe that sounds a little bit pertinent to us. We look around and we go, "Lord, my land is a mess. Where are you? What's going on?" If you remember at the beginning of the story here, this had been going on not just for 3 or 4 months, but for 7 years. They'd been under the Midianite oppression for 7 years. God, where are you? And so the challenge comes from this angel of the Lord. He says, "Why don't you go out and take care of this, you mighty warrior, you? I will be with you, and I will take care of you all the way through." And although Gideon hears that, and he knows that, okay, if God is with me, I'm probably better off, but he still didn't really believe it. And so he says, "Listen, I have a test for you. Pardon me, I have a test for you." Another pardon me moment. He says, "I'm going to go make an offering, and I'll bring it back to you." And I'm not sure what Gideon thought was going to happen. You know, he comes back with a bowl of soup and a piece of bread, and he goes, "There you go, there's my offering." He gives it to the angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord says, "Oh, put it on the rock, pour out the broth." I'm thinking, hey, I just made that soup. You pour it out on the rock. But then the angel of the Lord puts his staff down, and the rock itself, it says in our text, the rock caught on fire. That's a serious fire when the rock catches on fire. And I don't know what Gideon expected, but I'm sure when he saw that, he went, whoa! All right, I've misjudged exactly what's going on here. I misjudged you, and maybe you are who you say you are. And maybe the amazing work that you are calling me to, maybe I can do it. Gideon starts off a farmer in a bucket, worrying and saying, I'm not sure. I'm a little worried about this giant situation that's before me. And so he goes on. That same night, verse 25, that same night, the Lord said to him, take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of this height. Using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down, offer the second bull as a burnt offering. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm nervous already for Gideon. This is not a good thing. Not only do I have the Midianites out against me, but the worship here has gone a little south. And so my dad, Gideon's dad, is worshiping Baal. He's got the Asherah pole on the top of the hill and the altar that's built to Baal, and they're doing sacrifices to some foreign god. And now the Lord says, I want you, Gideon, to go up there and wreck Dad's thing. Oh, by the way, could you take one of Dad's cows and sacrifice him on the wrecked altar that your dad owned? And then cut down the pole and cut it into pieces, and we're going to light up this place and have a proper offering. Now, my guess, without going forward in the text, would be Gideon's going to say, pardon me, Lord. I'm not sure that you understand the implications of what you're asking me for. But as we turn the page, and in my Bible it is literally turning the page. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. Whoa, nice job. Gideon's got it. He's figured it out. If God's with me, I'm all set, right? I mean, we know that, right? If God's with us, we're all set, right? Well, he goes on. But because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. We find him hiding in a bucket. The Lord pulls him out of the bucket and gets him going, and he's almost there, and he's going to do this job, and he jumps up and he grabs 10 guys. We're going to go do this crazy thing, but he's still a little afraid, a little fearful. You know, God uses us when we're a little afraid. God can still use us when we're a little fearful. God can still use us when we say, Lord, I need a little more evidence. I need a little more convincing. I need a little more of you in my world so that I know that what you've called me to will actually work. God can use us even when we're fearful. So he sneaks in at night, and he wrecks the altar, and he kills the cow, and he cuts down the pole, and he lights the fire, and he has a proper offering to the King of the universe. Verse 28. In the morning, when the people of the town got up, there was Baal's altar demolished, and with the Asherah pole beside it cut down, and the second bull sacrificed on the newly built altar. They asked each other, who did this? They had a traffic cam, apparently, in the area, so they could figure out who did it. Maybe it wasn't a traffic cam. I'm not sure. They asked around. They asked each other who did this. When they carefully investigated, they were told, Gideon, son of Joash, did it. The people of the town demanded of Joash, bring out your son. He must die because he has broken down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Now, if I stop there, I'm going, oh, Dad is going to be really mad. Dad is not going to be happy. You ruined his altar. You killed his cow, and you cut down the Asherah pole, the big thing that God had, that your dad had put up on the top of the hill, and now you're hiding out in Dad's house. Where's Gideon? He's in the back door. The people are coming and ringing the doorbell at the front door and going, Joash, where's your son? Bring him out here. They want to talk to him. Joash is at the door. Verse 31. But Joash replied to the hostile crowd around him, Are you going to plead Baal's case? Are you trying to save him? Whoever fights for him shall be put to death by morning. If Baal really is a god, he can defend himself when someone breaks down his altar. So because Gideon broke down Baal's altar, they gave him the name Jerubbaal that day, saying, Let Baal contend with him. The name probably means, let Baal contend with him. So the situation is, he's ruined Dad's cow, ruined Dad's altar, took down the Asherah pole, hiding in the house. Dad goes to the door, like the crowd comes, and he opens the door and goes, Can I help you? Yeah, your son, we need to talk to him because he made a mess of the altar at the top of the hill. Dad defends Gideon. Isn't that amazing? I mean, when we step out for God, the answers come in all kinds of crazy ways. I would not have expected Dad, Joash, to defend his son. I would expect him to go, yeah, you take him, man, he made a mess. What a crazy kid I have. But instead he defends his kid. And he says, it's okay. If you're God up there on the altar, that Baal that you worship, if he's all that powerful, he can deal with Joash. And so the people said, let it be. Let it be so. Baal, you go deal with him. He's a problem kid, and we don't know what to do. Verse 33. So all the Midianites, the Amalekites, and the other eastern people joined forces and crossed over the Jordan and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Then, verse 34, the Spirit of the Lord came on Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, summoning the Abiezrites to follow him. He sent messengers throughout Manasseh, calling them to arms, and also into Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, so that they too went up to meet them. Gideon said to God, If you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand as you said. And that is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day. He squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowlful of water. Now we know that Gideon needs a little proof, a little evidence, a little confidence boost here that God's with him. And so he lays the fleece out and he gives some design to what his experiment is here. He says, God, I want this to work this way, just like this. If it works just like this. Last time around, he kind of brought the offering to the Lord, and God did a mighty thing and an unexpected thing. He lit up the rock and took care of the offering. But here, Gideon is laying it out. I want A to go to B and B to go to C. I want it to happen just like this. And if it happens just like this, then I'll go up and fight for you. And God does exactly what he said he wanted to be done. So Gideon should be thrilled. Verse 39. Once again he goes. Gideon said to God, Do not be angry with me. Let me make just one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece. But this time make the fleece dry and let the ground be covered with dew. That night God did so. Only the fleece was dry. All the ground was covered with dew. God is working with Gideon. He starts off so far from what God really wants of him. Although from the get-go he says, you're a warrior. Gideon, you're the warrior. And yet Gideon doesn't really believe that. Gideon doesn't really take hold of that. And again, God says to him, I'll prove it to you. I'm walking with you. I am the God. We can do this together. Do you believe me? Are you confident that I'm the God, enough of the God, that you can go forward from here? And Gideon gives him test after test. And he's just, man, I'm almost there, but I'm not quite there. I'll cut down the Asherah pole, but I'm going to do it at night. I'm going to be the king, the leader, the warrior that you need, God, but I need one more thing, just one more thing. I don't know about you, but I've asked that a few times in my life. God, could you convince me one more time that you're in this? Could you convince me once again that you're powerful enough for whatever I face? Help me to trust you, God. Gideon took a while. God is patient with him. Amen to that? It's a good thing God is patient with us. Mm-hmm. Chapter 7. Finally, we get to the battle. We've taken a whole chapter just to get Gideon out of the hole and ready for the battle. And so early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Moreh. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. I gathered up 32,000 men. And the Lord says, that's too many people. You got too many guys to fight this. You remember how many Midianites there were? He couldn't count them, right? There were so many that it was like impossible to count. And so he's got 32,000 guys show up, and God says, listen, you just ask anybody who's scared to go home. So all the scared one raised their hands. And I'm sure if, a few guys around you raised their hand, probably you were raising your hand because there was nobody left. I think I better go home too. I'm a little scared. I'm scared. Are you scared? I'm scared. Yeah, me and Larry, we're scared. We're going home. And so 22,000 folks leave the army. 10,000 remain. But, verse 4, the Lord said to Gideon, there's still too many men. You see, God wanted to make sure that there was no question it was a God thing. It wasn't because Israel was mighty. It wasn't because we worked out. It wasn't because we were strong. It was because God was doing the work. Still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say, this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink. 300 of them drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. Now, I spent a little time going, why, Lord, why? What is that? What, lapping like a dog out of my hand, my cupped hand, versus getting down to the river and sticking my face in. I worked on it a little bit. I actually read a few commentators too. I said, what do you guys think? And so the consensus pretty much is the guys who were doing it in their hands, they were still looking out. They were still watching for the enemy. Is he out there? I got my water. I got my water. I'm still watching. I'm still ready. I'm still a warrior. Well, the other guys are like, whatever. I'm going to stick my head in the drink and I'm going to get right down there. Who knows what God was thinking? But maybe it was those that were attentive. They weren't afraid, and they were attentive to the battle that was around them. And so we got another set of folks that went away. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. So many Midianites I can't count, and I got 300 guys. Wow. Let all the others go home. So Gideon sent the rest of Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. So every guy has a trumpet. This is great. Now the camp of Midian lay below him in the valley. During that night the Lord said to Gideon, get up, go down against the camp, because I am going to give it into your hands. This is your chance, Gideon. We're ready to go. You've been trained for this. You've been brought up. You've been convinced. You've been shown again and again God is mighty. You're going to do this. If you are afraid to attack. Verse 10. If you're afraid to attack, What do you think? Was Gideon afraid to attack? I think he was. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they're saying. Afterward, you will be encouraged to attack the camp. So he and Purah, his servant, went down to the outpost of the camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the other eastern peoples had settled in the valley, thick as locusts. Their camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling a friend his dream. I had a dream, he was saying. A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. His friend responded, "This can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands." When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, "Get up! The Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them, with torches inside. "Watch me," he told them. "Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout, 'For the Lord and for Gideon.'" Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard. They blew their trumpets and broke the jars that were in their hands. The 3 companies blew their trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in the right hands the trumpets. They were to blow. They shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords, and the army fled. Now, the rest of that battle goes on and on. It's quite a war. And so in the end, we see that the army is confused and scared, and the Midianites begin to attack each other, and then they begin to run away, and the battle just ensues until the very last of them, the king himself, gets killed as they chase and chase and chase and chase. But I wanted to stop there and think about all that went on from the time that Gideon was asked to become what God needed him to be. Again and again, God reinforced in him and said, "You are enough. You are a mighty warrior. You are who I say you are." And so maybe we could take a little bit from that. Who does God say you are? Who does God say you have inside of you? What is it that God has made in you? And as he called Gideon out, he says, "In the strength you have, I'm going to use you as a mighty warrior." So what has God built into you? Not only what has he said, but what has God built into you? What are you like? What's on the inside? How has he given you gifts and abilities and talents and perception? He's given you the ability to do so many different things. And each one of us is unique. It's not like anybody in this circle of new life is just like anybody else. You've got a place, a position, a job God has called you to. And if he's called you, he will convince you that he will go with you. Whatever it is he calls you to do next, he will go with you. I'll be at your side. I'm going to be the one who brings the victory. And you may come up against an enemy that is so much you don't believe you could get through it. But I will be there, God says. I will be there. I will go with you. And Gideon, so many times he goes over and over again, "God, I'm not sure, God, pardon me, I have a question. One moment, please. Could I have one more test? If you do it this way, could you do it that way too?" Just to convince himself. And God was infinitely patient in my mind. Like, really? You want me to, the fleece wet and the ground dry? What did you want this time? Oh, Gideon, come on, you're killing me, Gideon. Gideon's inability to trust God, Gideon's fear was still there, but God worked through it with him. God continued to massage him into his warrior role. Come on, Gideon, we can do this. And when he got right down to the end, he pushed Gideon pretty hard. 23, 33, 10,300. Now, you're ready to go. 300 guys against all this army. I mean, it was certain death. There's no way. If the armies of Midian had woken up and taken them on and gone straight at them, there's no way. But God had been ahead of him, building dreams even into the Midianites. They go down and they listen to the guy and he says, I had this dream. Oh, I know what that means. Gideon and the guys are going to kill us. Oh no. God was working ahead of him. God was way out there in the advanced guard. Same's true with us. We come into situations and, maybe they're new to us and they're confusing to us and they're difficult to us, but God was there ahead of us. God's already been there. God's already seen that situation, and he knows that we are enough for it. And if he calls us there, he's going to be there and say, I'll be with you, no matter what it looks like. So I was encouraged that, hey, Billy Bickmore, I have built into you some stuff, and I'm going to call you to some great things. But I'm going to walk with you, and I'm going to be patient as you try to take one step at a time. I know it's hard. I know it's a challenge, but you can do this. So I want to encourage you guys to maybe sit back Sunday afternoon now. It's getting to be Sunday afternoon. 10:48, I got a clock on the wall right here. Look at that. Everybody, I noticed that. Everybody looked up. Encourage you to take some time and go, God, what did you build me for? Who do you say I am? We sing that song. Who do you say I am? Am I a warrior for you? Am I the lover for you? Am I the encourager for you? Am I the joy bringer? Am I the hope lifter? What have you built into me, God? What is it you want from me? And I think about us all, and there's not many of us that are youngsters today. There's a few of us that are oldsters today. And we look at our lives and we go, so what now? I don't think God's done with any of us until we're done. So what now, God? Help me to listen to you. Help me to hear what you have to say. And help me to push into that and go, okay, if God goes with me, I can do that. Whatever it is, God, I can do it with you. Just like Gideon, there'll be doubts. Just like Gideon, God will reinforce it. Just like Gideon, in the end, he may call you to something pretty challenging. But if he's there, he's gone ahead of you, he's prepared it. We'll be okay. Well, that's a great story of Gideon. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope God uses it for all of us to be a little bit more like a warrior for God. Amen.